Hi, everybody. So great to see you. For those that I've not yet met or we haven't gotten a chance to say hello, my name is Nick Kane. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. The Patrick J. McGovern Foundation is a global philanthropy focused solely at the intersection between AI and social impact. We're a team of grant makers, certainly. That is a topic that we're going to talk about today, funding. But we're more than that as an institution. We're also a team of community builders, of learning specialists, of strategists, and also of technologists. We're really proud to have a team of data scientists and engineers actually on staff at PJMF, working to build AI solutions and directly advise nonprofits on their use and development of technology. And we're all working together, right, in pursuit of our shared purpose, building a thriving, equitable, and sustainable future for all. I imagine that purpose is actually one that might sound familiar. There's maybe some words that sit in the value statements of your organizations, one that we're all pursuing together. So I think it's worth starting by just kind of answering the question, why AI? Why is AI the lever that we've chosen to focus on as an institution for a number of years now? In fact, well before ChatGPT and generative AI really thrust AI back into the public conversation in such a meaningful way. I think there's a couple answers to that question. First, of course, is that we believe deeply in the power of AI solutions to drive, when put in the right hands and applied to the right problems, to drive transformative impact. For a regional food bank to be able to use a machine learning model to more effectively determine when and how to distribute food to local food pantries in their communities. For a global conservation organization to use satellite data and a machine learning model to better identify which parcels of land specifically are best suited for ecosystem restoration or rewilding, just to give a couple of examples. But I think the more important answer to that question is that AI is actually an entry point into a bunch of much bigger and important conversations and questions about our society. Especially now, especially in the world we're living in today, a conversation about AI is actually a conversation about power. A conversation about AI is a conversation about equity and access. It's an opportunity to interrogate the world we've built and think about what kind of institutions and values and governance structures we want to build for the future as we lean into what I think will be an AI-enabled future. That's really the question that motivates us, and I like to kind of illustrate why this principle matters so much to us with an anecdote. Just last year, I got on a call with a for-profit climate startup, actually, and they shared with me that they'd developed a new machine learning model that they were really, really excited about because it was going to dramatically improve the ability to forecast water scarcity at kind of a local and regional level. And they say, we're working with clients all over the world to help them understand how water scarcity may affect their operations and their ability to do their jobs. They shared, for example, we've got a brewer that does some work in northern Mexico, an area that is generally pretty arid. And we think we have a sense for, when water scarcity may put their business at risk. I said, that's really, really great, congratulations. I'm curious, do you have some thoughts about how you might be able to share some of those predictions with the broader community that's surrounding that brewery? The community that depends on that water system for their livelihoods, to cook, to clean, to water their gardens, and generally live dignified lives. You may imagine what followed was a bit of an awkward pause, a bit of a shrug of the shoulders and say, look, that would be great. We agree that's important. We're busy, we got to make money, and not sure when we're going to get to that, basically. I'm not naive. I know why that was the answer to the question. I think the point is, I'm not satisfied with the answer, and I think we as an institution are not satisfied with that being the answer to that question. And I think that's the motivation why we believe this conversation in this community, really engaging with AI, becoming builders and adopters and users of AI, is so critical. So how do we bring folks along on the AI journey? Well, one thing we do is, I think it's helpful to kind of take stock. Where is this community in their pathway on an AI journey? We partnered with our friends at Microsoft last year to just do a little bit of a point-in-time survey and research to answer that question. It was a global survey. We spoke to about 1,000 nonprofit professionals around the world, a nice mix of both roles and entities working in different domains and geographies. And we learned a handful of things that I thought would be helpful to tee up our conversation today. First is that organizations that were further along in their AI journeys were more likely to kind of report a positive sentiment toward the technology. This may seem somewhat straightforward or obvious, depending on your perspective, but I think it really emphasizes a point that I like to make often, which is that it's really only in context of your work, a specific application, a specific need or problem that you're trying to solve, where the promise of these tools and potentially some of the actual concerns or risks that may be relevant to your work become apparent. And generally, as that process progresses, that sentiment of positivity and excitement tends to grow. Second was that when presented with sort of a broad set of use cases and kind of asked, what excites you most about the potential for AI? Data analysis and predictive analytics were the ones that consistently across both groups, leadership and staff, said, this is what we need this for. I like this because I think it really speaks to the core potential of these tools. Underneath a lot of the more flashy use cases, which I think have a lot of value as well, is really just the ability to take a lot of data and make sense of it, to pull patterns out of it, and to help us be better at our jobs and in service of our communities thanks to those insights. So I was excited to see that come through in the survey. And finally, we know that all these organizations, even those that were pretty early in their journey, 70% of those who said we're really early still in our journey, and a full 93% of those that were advanced, that were really starting to adopt these tools, said we're already ready to start investing in our tech stack to help us do more. Investment is an important word choice here, right? It comes to the topic of the day. How do you pay for that? We know that sound technology use and innovation comes with certainly great planning, great strategy, but ultimately requires dollars. And so as invested as we are in helping nonprofits move along in their journey, we're also very interested in helping unlock more capital to flow out from philanthropy to help you do this critical work. What we've observed is that by and large, with a handful of exceptions, our good friends at the Omidyar Network, first among them, who we'll be talking with in a moment, there have been some philanthropies that have started to embrace this topic and think about the ways that it should integrate into their strategies, but by and large, most institutions have maybe approached it with a bit more curiosity, certainly, but trepidation, uncertain about how AI should fit into their operations and certainly into their actual strategies to drive change on the topics that they care about most. And we think it's so critical that institutions see this as a tool, just another tool in their tool belt to advance their work on housing, on climate, on health. And so one of the ways that we're trying to help the sector as a whole make some progress is to really build a community of practice among other funders. And we did that, one of the ways we did that was to bring about 100 institutions together last fall for a 2-day workshop and really sit in community and get hands-on. We reviewed draft proposals. We had technologists come in and talk about the sequencing that's involved in a technology development process. And we walked away with, I think, a core set of kind of hallmarks of a strong technology proposal. When a grant seeker is coming to a funder and saying, this is what I want to do with AI, what should they be saying? How should they be demonstrating what they plan to do? And I wanted to share 3 of those with you today. The first is one you may have heard before, but it bears repeating incredibly often. Clearly define the problem. Too often, unfortunately, we see, and I think partly this is due to the incredible potential of these tools, there's so much excitement about what they can do. And so we start from a place of, I know I can work this, I'd love to work this new technology into my work somewhere, we'll figure it out when we get there. That is not sort of the most strategically sound way to take this work forward, right? We don't want, let's bring a chatbot in to take our food pantry example, for example, a chatbot in to help our customers find out when food may be available, not particularly clear, not particularly actionable, but instead, we've noticed that we have two kind of categories of clients. Some that are chronically in need of food support, and some that may be coming to us for a one-time sort of bridge in a moment of crisis. We think we have some data that might signal which of our clients are in those groups, and if we could predict where they would fall earlier, we would be able to serve them much better. That's an AI problem, and that's a really, really exciting opportunity to go further. Second is to understand the strengths and limitations of your data. At PGMF, we actually run a workshop called Data Readiness. It's a really, really important part of the process. I'm sure this group, everyone in this room knows that almost regardless of the AI use case or tool, It's only going to be as good as the data on which it's trained or on the data on which it's querying. Understanding the data that you have. If it's in two places, are those two places going to be able to talk to each other, those two data sets? Do you own all the data that you have? Have the people who perhaps supplied the data given their consent to use it in the way that you're imagining using it with this AI tool? It's not that you should have answers to all of these questions at the outset, but that there should be a demonstration of some of the thinking behind it and how you may adjust your approach depending on the answers as you move forward. And last, it's really critical to try your very, very best to know what skills you need and when you'll need them. As I mentioned a moment ago, the technology development process kind of unfurls in a way that is perhaps different from most other project rollouts or program rollouts in the nonprofit context. It's going to be a bit modular. It has distinct phases: user research, design, prototyping. All of these involve feedback that may lead to pivots or, changes in plans. It's helpful to be able to articulate contingencies, think about what kind of expertise you might need at these various points, how that might affect your timing, your budget, and being able to articulate, again, not present a crystal ball that you know where it's headed, but instead that you know that there may be multiple pathways ahead of you and how you'll plan to react. I want to end on a note. I think it's a really important note to share in conversations like this, which is it's not going to be the case that every nonprofit institution or civil society institution should become a builder or user of AI. Many of you will. Many of you may find those really, really well-defined problems that speak to you and that align really well with a tool that's in your tool belt. I think what we believe very strongly and why we think conversations like this are so important is that it's only when this community, both funders and the folks in this room, and our friends at large technology companies that bring us together in this way and that are the drivers of so much important innovation in this space, create conversation that builds bridges between communities' lived experience and the potential of these technologies, that folks who want to participate have access to participate and the tools at their disposal to do so. That's the only way we're going to get to that future I sort of described at the beginning of my remarks, one where communities' lived experience really start to shape the tools that are shaping their lives, where there is in some sense almost a public option for the AI that we are using in our work. We like to think of that future, we like to call that future a human-centered AI future. It's what we aspire to be building day in and day out at the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation. It's an honor to be building that alongside many of you. We're excited to continue to do so. Thank you so much.